Hi everybody, Ron Placone here. You're watching another edition of Media Bites, and every now and again we have a Media Bites segment that is a bit more serious in tone, and this is going to be one of those times because I wanted to do something for Nelson Mandela. Now, just to throw this out here, I am not an expert on Nelson Mandela, nor do I pretend to be. There's a lot of historians and cultural scholars and others out there, and their reflections on Nelson Mandela will be much more thorough and informative than anything I could even attempt to put together, so that's not really what I'm looking to do here. But instead, I wanted to share this story, and this is something that I remembered and thought of right after I heard the news about his passing. When I was an undergraduate, I took an ethnomusicology class, and it was a very fun class. It was an amazing class, and it was taught by a professor. It was kind of like a large intro class, so there were a lot of students in it. So there was a main lecturer, and then there were several graduate students that also helped out. And the main lecturer was actually one of the most boring lecturers I've ever had in my life. I mean, he was a super nice guy, great guy, and the topic matter was so interesting, but he was just such a boring lecturer. But anyway, we would break off into sections once or twice a week and meet with the graduate students, and they would kind of go over the topic matter in a little more detail. And we were dealing with South Africa. One of the graduate students was from South Africa, and so that was kind of the area that he was very knowledgeable in, so he did our graduate student lecture on that particular day. And I remember just the passion he had when talking about Nelson Mandela, and the way he made it clear that life as he knew it would not have been the way it was had it not been for Nelson Mandela, for Nelson Mandela's work, for Nelson Mandela's activism. And at the time, I wasn't very familiar. I mean, I knew who Nelson Mandela was, I'd heard the name, but I didn't really have much insight into his life or his work. And I felt pretty lucky that my first insight was this kind of, this almost first-hand account from somebody that was very knowledgeable, and also it really affected their life to the point where they decided that they were going to come to the United States and pursue scholarship to really spread these ideas and spread the importance of this work. And specifically, I remember that this guy didn't even know what time class was supposed to end. And it didn't matter, you know, like, he didn't care. He was here, like, this was his time to talk about Nelson Mandela. And he got up there, and it was like, his passion was just so infectious. And every single student was just hanging on word for word because of the power in what he had to say. Where there was this guy that wasn't happy with the status quo, that knew a paradigm needed to shift, and so he did everything he could to make that happen. And even when it landed him in jail, he didn't give up. And it was just so infectious, and it got to the point where this guy went, I think, about 30 or 45 minutes over when class was supposed to end, and finally this one guy in the class sheepishly raised his hand, and the graduate student called on him, and he's like, "Look, I really feel bad interrupting you, but I'm going to miss a test if I don't leave right now." And then the guy was like, "Oh, was class supposed to be over?" And we were like, "Yeah, it is a little late," and so he let us out. It just really struck me, you know, like, this guy, and I don't remember this graduate student's name, but I hope that now he's a professor somewhere, and I'm sure he is because he was great. But at the time, I was starting to get involved with issues of media reform and media activism, and it was something that I knew I really wanted to play a role in my life, you know, whether that meant I joined a nonprofit, or whether that meant I got involved with a non-commercial radio station, or whether that meant I did an artistic endeavor. You know, I wasn't sure yet, but I knew it was something that was really important to me. And I thought, man, maybe someday, you know, people will be talking about that movement and how it really changed the way we went about news and information in the United States. But anyway, I just wanted to share that story about what I see as just the power of an idea, and the power of wanting a change in the status quo. And I think obviously Nelson Mandela is one of the main figureheads that really exemplifies that, and he passed yesterday. And that was just a story that I thought of that wasn't really fresh in my mind, But I remember the way I felt that day, and the way I felt after that lecture, and you know, I guess it definitely had an effect. You've been watching Media Bites, and this is Ron Placone signing out.